All right, I wanted to put together a quick video that talks about all of the strategies that we've covered so far with adding and subtracting positives and negatives. I've been getting a lot of questions, especially since we looked at the properties. So the first thing I want to make sure you understand is all of those properties are a way to make your work more efficient, and they're not something where there's a certain sequence that you have to do the problem in, or there are certain properties that you can use and it's right and that you can't use and it's wrong. There's a lot of different ways to solve even the problem that you see up here. So I'm going to go through one way where I can try to use as many different strategies as I can. In this problem, we've got 4 minus the quantity of 3 1/4 minus 2 plus a negative 3/4. This we haven't really specifically talked about in class, but I want to talk about this minus this quantity in parentheses. This subtraction sign outside of this expression applies to both of the numbers inside the expression. So what I mean by that is the subtraction sign applies to the 3 1/4 and this minus 2. So the very first thing I'm going to do is rewrite that expression without the parentheses. And just to be clear, if you wanted to start out by doing 3 1/4 minus 2, the way it's written, that would have been okay too. Keep in mind you don't get a calculator this unit, so that would involve more complicated math that you're doing with pencil and paper. So if I rewrite this, the 4 is the same. I'm just going to bring that down. Now, this subtraction sign applies to 3 1/4. So 4 minus 3 1/4. Now, this subtraction sign also applies to this minus 2. So if we're thinking about it in terms of this is the opposite of minus 2, or the inverse of minus 2. So when I rewrite this, it would become plus 2. And I still have this plus negative 3/4. The next thing I want to do is rewrite my subtraction part of this problem as addition, because then if I choose to use the number line as a strategy to solve, I can do that. And I can't do it when it's written as a subtraction problem. So let me just change colors. And the part that I'm talking about is right here, 4 minus 3 1/4. I'm going to rewrite that using add the opposite. So again, this 4 stays the same. I'm going to bring down the 4. We don't change the first number. We talked about add the opposite, where the subtraction sign becomes addition. And by opposite, we mean the second number becomes its opposite. So 4 minus 3 1/4 is the same as 4 plus a negative 3 1/4. I'm going to rewrite the rest of my expression. And what I'm going to do next, you might choose to not do, and that's fine, but it's the strategy that we just learned yesterday, decomposing a mixed number. So the mixed number that I want to break into its whole number and fractional part is negative 3 1/4. This 4 is still the same. So if I were to rewrite negative 3 1/4 as a whole number and a fraction, the whole number would be the negative 3, and then we're adding to it a negative 1/4. And that was the decomposition of a mixed number strategy. And I have the rest of the expressions still. Now all I want to do is rearrange this so that I can simplify. So I'm going to put all of my whole numbers or negative numbers together and all of my fractions together. And because I rewrote this as an addition problem, I can do that because of the commutative property that you talked about the other day. So let me switch colors. I'm going to rewrite this as 4, maybe, there we go, as 4 plus negative 3 plus 2 plus negative 1/4 plus negative 3/4. When I put negative 1/4 plus negative 3/4 together, I get negative 1. So that brings us to that rule of adding integers when they're both negative. So remember, we add the numbers together and we keep the sign. So a fourth plus 3/4 is 1. They were both negative, so it's -1. I'm going to use my other rule over here, 4 plus -3. When I'm adding integers and they're different signs, so one is positive and one's negative, I subtract the numbers. So 4 minus 3 is 1. And then I need to look at, well, which one of those numbers is further from 0? And that's how I determine the sign. So between 4 and -3, the 4 is further away from 0 on a number line. It's 4 spaces away. The 3, the -3, is only 3 spaces away. So 4 is further from 0. 4 is positive, so my answer is positive. I still have this plus 2. I'm just going to continue up here. So now I'm going to do 1 plus 2 is 3. Oops, I forgot this plus sign here. This is plus -1. So now I have 3 plus -1. And same rule again, different signs, so I'll subtract them. So 3 minus 1 is 2. The 3 is further from 0, so the 2 is a positive number. That one problem pretty much covers definitely all the rules for adding and subtracting integers that we talked about. It covered add the opposite. It covered adding different signs versus same signs. And it also talked about most of the properties and also the strategy of decomposing a number. The only thing not covered was modeling it on a number line.